Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful back in the studio today with another fun new holiday project video. So if you're just joining me for the very first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, please give me a thumbs up and consider clicking on subscribe and then the little bell so that you'll receive a notification when I post new videos. So I have been working for quite a while now on a series called Gel Print Art. So if you're familiar with jelly printing, it's so much fun and addicting, and you end up with loads and loads of fun papers that you've made. So I decided to create a series, a playlist, and it includes starting from creating gel prints and then tons of ideas of things to do with your gel prints. So if you've been following along, I think this is episode 25, maybe something like that. I will put a link down in the description for the entire playlist. So if you are just watching this one for the first time, there will be several videos at the very beginning that you might find helpful if you're not familiar with gel printing, and also how we got to the papers that I've been using for all these projects. So those were covered in the first few videos. And in the last couple, I was starting to do things like these little resin leaves, and then I created these little holiday ornaments. And so I'm showing these. I've finished these this week, and so I had not shown them finished. So I have a whole, I think 10 of them here, and they're so much fun to do, and they're each one of a kind. They're all made with our gel print art, and they just make great gifts, I think. So I want some for my tree. I would like to do some for gifts. And then I was also invited to be a vendor at a benefit for the Sierra Nevada Ballet for their holiday, a holiday show that they're doing. I think it's a holiday tea, and they wanted to do a holiday market so that people could buy gifts and things for the holiday season. So I was invited to participate and bring things to this marketplace. So I'm hoping to get some more of these made because I think they'll be a fun thing. So I'm going to get these out of the way. So this video, I think, was the last video. So if you want to learn how to make these, they're so much fun, and they're nostalgic for me because they're a takeoff on something that my grandma and I used to make when I was a little girl. And so I've just kind of kicked them up a little notch here and made these fun ornaments. So if you have not been following this series, there are so many art projects, and these are kind of more of a craft project. There's everything from jewelry to buttons and all sorts of things, and art pieces also. So, and I'm going to just keep kind of making things as I think them up. So I also had sold out of, I'd been making buttons and then these little brads for journal closures, and I have sold out of the brads. So I have an entire new batch started here that just need to have the brads put on. So those will also be hopefully added to the shop this week again. So I'll restock those. And I did already restock the buttons with the little shank button on them. So today, though, let me get to what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to stay in the holiday theme because it's that time of year. And again, these were all done with gel prints. So I decided to make some greeting cards, holiday cards. I started out with a tree, so I'm going to show you how I did this one today. And then with the scraps that were left over from the tree, I made some gift tags. So I'll show you those as well. And then I decided to decorate a tree too. So these were all with gel prints. So we're going to make these two. And then my favorite, I just love how these turned out. These are just with our gel prints again. If you've been following along, we made, at the very beginning, we made what I call my stripy papers. And we're going to use those to make these fun little ornament cards. So they're all, each one is one of a kind. But they're just so much fun and dimensional that I just loved. I love these. So it's just, they're so colorful and fun. And then they just have a little, little holiday feel to them. So we're gonna make one of these today. So I'll go over how I did all of this because I did some experimenting and kind of fine-tuned it till I got to a place that I really loved these cards. and I was able to kind of mass make them. So we're gonna make these today too. Okay, so let's start with the Christmas tree because that's where I started when in my making. So the first thing that you're gonna need obviously is your card and an envelope. So you can purchase sets of cards and envelopes. So you can purchase them on Amazon. I'll try to find links for things like this. And these are just off-white ivory and then white. This pack is from Recollections, and it comes with 10 cards and 10 envelopes in the A2 size, which is about 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So that's kind of a nice size for a card. You can also, make them larger. You can also, if you want to just buy envelopes and not buy the sets, you can make your own. So maybe some of you have envelope on my scoreboard. It actually has patterns for envelopes too, and the cards, so that you can make those from scratch. So this is just, kind of a copy paper weight envelope anyway. And then the card would just be, you would just use some heavier, like 110-pound cardstock, something like that for the card. So it's super easy if you want to make your own, but you can purchase them if you don't. And then you could also just purchase envelopes. So these I just got at Walmart. This is just their brand, but you can order on Amazon also. This is an A6 size, which is an invitation size. So it's a little bit larger. I think that's what I used maybe for this larger card. I think. So it might be kind of this A6 size. And again, if you buy just the envelopes, then you can just use cardstock like I did here and just create your card. So you'll need that to create the card. And then for the tags, I used just some scrap. I think this is a watercolor paper that's not real textured, so it's a little bit heavier. So something like that, or a heavier mixed media paper if you want it to have more substance than just a cardstock. So you'll need something for your substrate. I keep a box of scraps of this kind of thing, and so they don't all need to match each other really. So I'll just, grab a piece. In fact, these aren't really white. They're kind of an ivory color. So just some scrap cardstock or heavier weight paper that you could use for your tag base. And then for the tie, I just found a thing of twine that had like a little gold accent on it. So that's what I used for the little tie. So on these two cards, I ended up doing 2 different sizes. So unless you're selling them or gifting a whole collection, just use what you have. So I'm going to need another something because I want this tree to be a little heavier duty than just putting a piece of paper onto my card. So I, again, got some scrap of cardstock. So this is just kind of a little piece of cardstock. It could even be something thinner, doesn't have to be thick, but I kind of like having that dimensional feel to it. So I'm going to use that as my substrate. Now, when I made these, obviously these are larger trees. This one would fit on this little piece here. So I kind of just measured what size tree would I want on my size card, and I ended up with, I think, 2.5 by, let's see, this is for the A2 size card. I ended up with wanting my tree to be like maybe 3.5 or 4 by 2.5. So I cut this a little bit larger than I need, just so that I have some room to cut. We're not going to make a pattern for this at all. We're just going to freehand cut it. And so it's super easy. They don't all have to be identical, but I'm going to use, just something similar to the size of the tree that I want on my card. Okay. So I'll move this aside for now. And then I'm going to take my gel prints, and I just grabbed a pile. I went through my bin and I just pulled out anything that was green or had green on it that I could trim a piece of green off of. So just get a variety of your gel prints that are any kind of green. I even had a piece that was just a clean off sheet of green that was done on book page, so I can even include some of that. So what you're going to do is I'm going to get a piece of paper here to protect my table, and I just want to cover this whole thing in these strips. Now when I did mine, I did them 1/2 inch strips. Doesn't matter how long they are because we're just going to end up using parts of it, and then I'll do a different card with the rest. So depending on how wide your piece is, you need pieces that are long enough. And because we're making a tree, the pieces on the bottom need to be the full length but they could taper and not cover the whole thing as you go up, unless you're going to want to use this scrap for something. So when I made my first tree, which was this one, I covered an entire piece that was about this size. So I had these scraps on the sides, and that's what I used to make I took this, you can kind of see the pattern is the same. And I just used that scrap to create these smaller trees for the tags. So you're not going to waste anything. Even if you do something this size, your little scrap tree will just be smaller, so your tag will be smaller. So you can, if you know for sure you want to do tags, just make your little piece a little bit larger so that you have more scrap. And that way it saves you time doing this step that we're going to do right now. So I'm just going to take, and I know the bottom piece needs to be the full length, okay? So I'm going to just take my Yoo-Hoo glue stick, and I'm just going to start gluing these strips. I used my guillotine cutter to cut these so that they would be all the same width and even. You can vary the width if you want. They don't have to all be the same. And then I'm going to just take pieces. So I have different lengths here now because I've been making these. So you're just going to get another something. And you want some contrast from one strip to the next. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it will help you to see all those little stripes if you alternate maybe light and dark and that sort of thing. So you're going to just butt those right up against so that you don't see any of that white in between. So cutting these on my paper trimmer, my guillotine cutter, it made them super straight so that I'm able to get those right up next to each other and not see any white. So you're just going to fill this up. And again, like I said, you can use shorter pieces as you move up so that you don't waste anything. Like I'll maybe use this one up here somewhere. So you're just going to fill this up. So depending on how many cards you want to make, you're going to just sit and mass make a whole bunch of these striped little green things. And let's see. So just put on some music and let's see, maybe there, maybe. So you could take the time to kind of lay out your pieces if you want. And maybe I have even just a littlest tiny piece like this for the tip of my tree. So I can kind of do something like that. I kind of want something darker here though, I think in the middle. So maybe I'll do this one. So I'm just trying to kind of keep it centered because I know I'm going to be cutting a triangle out of this. And that one I've used. Okay, so now I have a scrap finish that I know I can cut a triangle out of. I'm going to take my little self-healing cutting mat just because it'll help me I have some guide marks on this. So I want my tree to be 2.5 inches and then find the center up here. So I'm going to this has some measurements on it. So I'm just going to plop it here. And that way I know that from here to here is 2.5 inches. So if you have a pencil, you can kind of mark that for yourself. And then you're going to find the center. So my center is here, which is here. And then I'm going to take my metal ruler and I'm just going to find those little marks that I made. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of line that up. And then just cut this. And my blade is not the sharpest. And if you're curious about things like this mat or anything like that, down in the description, I have a running list of all the different materials and tools and things that I have been using in this entire series. So if my list is getting quite long so that I'm running out of room in my description. So I may have to do a separate link to the list at some point. But what I've been doing is in the most recent video, I might eliminate some of the things from previous videos. And then, you'll see them in the video that you're watching, the older ones. But in the newer videos, you might not have the entire list, but you'll have what is in that particular video. So you can see I don't have really large enough scraps here. If I had filled this up all the way, I could make another tree, a little smaller tree for a tag. So that's what I meant by you can make your things a little bit larger than what your tree needs to be, and you'll have, and if you go all the way to the edges, then you'll have enough scraps to be able to make another tree. So that's just kind of a tip if you want to make tags too. Okay, so now you have this triangle. So you could make a bunch of these, and maybe on a larger card, you put 3 in a row with a little trunk or whatever. So you could stop just here and call that your tree. But I want to make it look like an actual like little pine tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some little smaller scissors, and I'm going to make a little cut that's probably between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to use these lines that I already have here, and that'll make it nice and even. So I can just go and make my little snip and do the similar size. They don't have to be exact. When you get up to the top, you'll need to make them smaller because your tip, you won't have that much space. So just kind of make a little snip. I'm going to make this one a little bit shorter, and I'm going to make this one probably like 1/8 of an inch. Now you'll see this better from the back. So you can see all my little notches that I've made. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So you can do that now, or you can do it after you've finished trimming these. So let's go ahead, and we're just going to do it now. Whenever you're doing something like this and you're mass making something, the more you do something, the easier and faster you get at it. So you get kind of a rhythm going, and your cuts will be more even because you've been kind of doing the same thing over and over again. So you're just going to, again, make your little cuts. So this one is going to be, I have barely anything hanging on there, so I should maybe be a little bit more careful. So that's going to be more delicate. So it's easier to do this from the back side because of the color. It's hard to see where your mark is. So if you do this from the back side, you can see, and you're going to just take your scissors, and you're going to go from the outside point and to the corner there, and you're going to cut that off. So I'm just going to line my scissor up with that end of that line, and you're just going to snip that out. Same thing, I'm going to go down here to the outside corner, find that little inside line, and cut that out. So you're just going to do this up both sides and trim this up here. So this was a fun project for me because I've actually never been a card maker, really. I have some things, I have some tool, it's like anybody else. You buy some things thinking you want to make your own cards, but then you never actually get around to doing it, or thinking up, what kind of card, what do I want my card to be? I made some floral ones. I have some little die cuts that I had purchased a while back. And so I have made some cards, I guess, but I wouldn't consider myself a card maker. So these are all pretty simple. If you are a card maker, then you're going to probably know way more techniques than I do. But this is kind of just another thing to do with our gel prints. And some of you out there may never have made cards like me. And so you'll find hopefully some helpful things. So now you can see that looks more like a tree. So now we have our tree cut out. So, again, you didn't need a pattern or anything for that. You just needed to be able to cut your strips. And again, you can make your strips vary in width. They don't have to be the same. You can maybe, I did try making some look wonky, and I didn't like that as much as this one. So you can see, where's the card here? If I just put it against something white, how cute that is. So you could leave it just that way and not do anything else to it. But I decided I wanted to put a little trunk on mine. So I want to do that. Now, I have a thing about white edges. And so I did play around with some experimenting. So for this card, I don't think it really matters so much about a white edge. But if you don't like that, like I do, I had some Distress ink in Rustic Wilderness. This is from Ranger. And this is just these little ones. You can buy them in kind of a set of different colors. So this one was just the green that I had. And I have this little finger dauber thing. And I found that to do this, to get in, when I've inked before for tight spots like this, I would get a little makeup eyeshadow brush and get in those. But I didn't really want to take the time to do that, to be honest. So I played around, and I found if I do it from the back side, I could actually get a lot more of that in the corners if I go up, you know, towards the corner. And I was able to just really kind of get those edges inked and not white by doing it from the back side. Now you can do it some from the front if you want some of that color on there too, but I mostly just wanted to get rid of that edge, that white edge. So you can do that if you want or not, okay? So that was just another little thing. And then to stick this onto my card, one thing that I do know about card making is I don't want to use anything too wet because that is going to dampen the actual card. So what you could do, and I've done this on my little art cards, when I did these, I actually, instead of, you know, doing my little collage, which imagine that this piece was white, you could just take a second piece of white cardstock that's a little bit smaller so that it creates like a little matte frame look, and then mount this onto your other substrate, the white cardstock, and then attach that whole piece. So if you were to glue this to something white and it kind of dampened it a bit, that piece would then be attached to the actual card part. So you wouldn't have that dampness coming through the inside of your card. I hope that makes sense. So you would be taking just a second piece of cardstock and then attaching the whole thing to your card. So I went ahead and did these right to my card. And so to do that, I used my Xyron sticker maker. That's kind of why I did this 2.5 inches wide, because that's how wide my sticker maker is. Unfortunately, my sticker maker has repositionable adhesive in there right now. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is an old one, so I think they look a little bit different now. But it's a sticker maker, so that you put your item in, and see mine's 2.5 inches wide is my tape. So I could actually run this through and then it comes out as a sticker. Now, the only thing negative again was mine's repositionable, so they weren't sticking very well. So I decided not to use this. You can buy permanent sticker roll, and that's what I need. And I don't have any right now. So I had to come up with plan B, and most of you probably aren't going to have that sticker maker anyway. So the other thing was when I use the sticker maker, the way the adhesive comes off, I had little bits in here I had to clean off a little bit before I stuck it down. So the other thing is you could take the time to use double stick tape. That way it would be dry and then stick it down. But I also have these, and I love these. And this is actually what I would use, either this or double stick tape, to if I had attached this to like another substrate, another piece of white, and then that whole thing was getting attached to my card. This is what I would use, either this or double stick tape, to stick it to the card, because it doesn't wet the actual card at all. And so I like that. So this is from Tombow. It's just these dots adhesives. So if you buy one of these, once your thing is used up, don't toss this, because you can buy refills. So you can buy packs of 3 refills of this and just save this part, and then you just put it back together, and now you have a new one that's working. So this is what I ended up using. So I would just kind of run this over the whole thing, and I haven't finished it, so I won't do this, and then just stick it down to your actual card. Okay, so let's see, maybe I'll finish this one real quick here, and then I can stick it onto a card, just since I started this already. Okay, so the other thing that you can do is when I did my first one, I didn't decorate my tree. This is the first one that I did, and I didn't decorate my tree. I just put another little gel print piece that had some brown in it for my trunk. This one, I decided I wanted to decorate my tree, and I also used gel print for that. So if you have been following along this series, you know that in addition to making gel prints like what I've just been using, I also made my stripy papers, and those again are in the first few videos. We made stripy papers in 2 different weights. One was a thin, lighter weight so that we were making vessels like this. So we made stripy papers that were thin enough to be able to wrap around, mold around something like this. And then we also made thicker ones that I used to make some of the art projects and things like these collaged cards. So for this project, I used the regular gel prints, and then I used the stripy papers that were the thicker cardstock. So here again is another example. These are just scraps that are left, but we had made stripy papers, the thin ones. And then we also made these thicker ones by using our strips onto a substrate like a piece of mixed media paper or cardstock or something like that. So for this project, I'm using the thicker ones again. Now, if you only have thin ones and you want to use those, then you could just attach this to another piece of cardstock, just glue it down, and then you'd have a thicker one again. So again, for those of you who have not been watching, there's lots and lots of videos, and we made these papers way at the beginning, and we've been using them in all these projects like the ornaments that I just showed you. These ornaments were also made with thicker paper. Okay, so you have your tree. You're going to find some way to attach it. But before I did that, and actually you could do it after in this case, but before you do that, if you want to make a decorated tree like this one, this is actually gold embossing to make the little garland. And then the actual ornaments are taking scraps, you know, like I have lots of leftover things like this from punching the holes, and I would just find a little spot somewhere and use just a regular hole punch, just the regular size, and made all the little ornaments. So that's, you know, simple enough to do. So to do the garland on this, I used this from Ranger an Emboss It pen. And it's nice because you can totally control, you know, it's very small, so you can get kind of a finer line. So I just, you know, went from one edge to the next. So we'll do this one. So I just kind of made a swoop from one corner to the other. And you can kind of see that line barely. It's just kind of adding a little glue to it. So I need to make that line all the way up. So again, I'm just going to go from one end up here and then go the other way. Just kind of make this swoop and kind of go here so it kind of looks drapey. I know you can't see this. I can barely see it, but I'm just going to trust that it's there. And then kind of go up here, and I won't do that very top piece. So that's sticky right now. So what I need to do is get some of my embossing powder that I should already have had out. And for this, I used gold. This is from Recollections. You can use any brand, but this is just embossing powder. And I'm just going to sprinkle this because this is the only one I'm doing all over this. And I should have put my little powder on there, but I didn't. I keep forgetting this little tip because I don't do this very often. I had to add a little bit. So if you get somewhere you don't want it, you can kind of see my swoopy lines now. You can take a little paintbrush and just brush it away. You know, I have a little here I can see. For this, I almost don't care because it's going to just give me a little sparkle in those other places. Okay, so I kind of have that on there. The other thing that you can do that I keep forgetting about is you can use powder your piece before you put the sticky pen on there. You're going to put that back in the container because we're going to heat this up, and if I get my heat gun out with this open, it will blow everywhere. So we're going to put that away, and then I need my heat gun. And because I have this will melt, not melt, but it'll get kind of warpy. I'm going to use this little metal tray just to protect my work surface. And then I like to use some kind of little something that I can hold this down so it doesn't blow away. So I'm just going to heat this up. I'm going to turn the sound off. I'll get in here close so you can see what happens if you've never done any embossing before. I'll turn the sound off, but I'm just going to heat this, and you'll watch this powder melt, and it's instant. And then as soon as it cools, it's permanent. So I get a little bit off of that. So I did that in real time without the sound, but I didn't fast forward it because I wanted you to see how fast that works. So I love embossing because it just gives you a little layer of finish to something, and it's so quick to do. So the other thing that I forgot though, and I forgot it in the last time I did the embossing, was you can use, this is just an old little sock, and then you can put powder in that. And if you damp that, I should have done this before, but if you powder this first, then put your pen and then put your embossing powder, and when you dump it off, you won't get the embossing powder will not stick to all these other areas. So that's just a little tip. I keep forgetting about this, but you just kind of, it just has some powder in it. So now we have embossed our little piece, and then you would just put your ornaments on there. So you just punch out some things with this, and then I used my art glitter glue and just put a little dab and glued those down. And then I need a piece for the trunk. So I'm not going to put this whole card together, but you get the idea, of decorating versus not decorating it. So I ended up with, all my little ornaments. Now, when I did these ornaments, I liked them to have a little bit of extra shine to them. So before you punch those out, if you've taken a piece, now if you've been following along, you can see that this has some shine to it. It's because I use Camar varnish from Krylon, which is kind of like a workable fixative. And I spray that first, which gives it that little bit of shine, and it seals your pen work in case you're going to be doing anything that might be liquid and wipe away any of your pen work. So I seal those, but I even wanted a little bit more than that. So I used this thicker paper, but then I did some embossing first with just clear embossing, and then punched those out so they looked more like glassy ornaments. So I have a little piece that I can show you what that looks like that we're going to be using for the next card. But if you look at that, you see how much shinier, how it almost looks like it's been resined and just has that extra glassy coating on it. That is using clear embossing powder. So this one is, again, by Recollections, and it's just detail embossing powder, but it's transparent. So that lets you give something kind of that resin look without using resin. So it's just a little quicker thing. You do it the same way as I did with the gold on here. So I just did that to a piece of scrap, some of my scraps, before I punched those holes out and had my ornaments. So that's how I made that one. And then on the one, this is the first one that I had done, and I didn't decorate it at all. So I decided, you'll see after the ornament card, I loved all that color again. And so I decided just to use some of that scrap. And again, you're going to just take some of this that you have scraps laying around, and you're going to cut out some little rectangles. And so they're raised, they're thicker than the paper. You can kind of see they're dimensional, and just created some packages. So to me, what made those kind of more interesting and fun, you can see this one and this one here, they don't have all that extra little detail. So when you're cutting these out, if you want to cut some that look more like a solid package, but to me, what made them fun would be to make sure when you cut them out is you cut out something that has this black and white in it. So say you want to do a package. I did mine on my guillotine cutter just so I can get them nice and straight. But you can just make sure you get something with lots of detail in it. And so that way your package it looks like it has ribbon on it already. So that made a bunch of quick and easy packages just using our tiniest scraps that we had left. So now you can see why I don't throw anything away, because these weren't very big, but they're great for little packages. And I can even, stack more and just kind of layer them up if I want. So I just thought that was a lot of fun and quick and easy for a greeting card. Okay, so that's the tree cards and the tree tags. And then I knew when I made the trees that I wanted to make ornament cards because I had made those fun ornaments. But I kind of put those off to later because I just thought they were such a no-brainer. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to find a way to make them extra special. And as I was playing around with all this embossing powders and things, I did some experiments with a couple of different ones, and even some of them I outlined the edge in gold. I don't know if there's any that made the cut in here, but just trying different things out. So you might not have all of these products, and that's okay. You're gonna use what you have. For the ornament cards, I took and used because of the size of my card, you can make larger ornaments, but you can vary the sizes, and then that way some will look more forward and behind, that kind of thing. So you can do, a variety, but I've just taken this. The ones I showed you are all a 1-inch punch. So this is, again, just some of that thicker scrap. You would just punch your piece. And again, if you have, say, a full strip, what I tried to do was make sure that I have some of this black and white in the middle somewhere. It doesn't have to be exact, but it makes your ornaments more interesting. I didn't really like ones that I had a lot of solid on one side. So here are a couple that are ready to go. But you can see they have the black and white detailing in there that kind of breaks up your patterns. So as far as punching them out, other than I wasn't really caring what was everywhere. They don't need to be centered and perfect and all that for ornaments, because in the big picture, they just look fun. So my main thing, though, was that I wanted some of this black and white to break it up, because I think it makes it more fun and interesting. So I have 5 here ready to go on a card, because I wanted to show you how to put that together. So I have this embossing powder everywhere. So I need to kind of get rid of that. One thing you want to do is, once you've finished your circles, I liked to mass make these too, because they take a few minutes, to do. So if you're going to make a bunch of cards, you're going to need a bunch. I ended up putting 5 for this 1-inch size on the size card I had. I liked 5, but you can do larger ones and do 3, or do a smaller card and do 1 larger one, whatever you have. So you can take a gold pen. If, say, you don't have all this embossing things, but you want to fancy it up a little bit, you can take just like a gold paint pen and just go around the edges like we did in the ornaments in the last video. You can do that just to kind of give it something. Maybe you have some gloss medium. There's different brands, and there's like the triple thick and that kind of stuff. So maybe you can just use some gloss medium, several coats, and it would make that glossy. Maybe you have some glitter pens and you want to just do glitter around the edge, that sort of thing. So I wanted these, they were already colorful, but I wanted them to look glassy like ornaments. So the first step in mine, I ended up not bothering with the edge, and I used this clear first and just went over the whole thing. To do that, I thought it was easier to use this embossing dauber. This is from Ranger Distress embossing dauber. So it just covers more area faster instead of that pen having to write over the whole thing. So I just kind of used that and just brushed it on the whole thing, and then did the same thing I showed you before. I poured a pile of this onto a piece of paper, and then that way I just went through that whole pile. Got all of these with the powder on it, cleaned up my powder, got it out of the way, and then with the heat tool, just heated that clear embossing on all of them. And then you can see how I wanted them to kind of look more snowy. And I tried them all the way around. I didn't like that. So I took this again is also from Recollections, and this one's called Opaque Sparkle. It's kind of white, but has kind of a baby bluish tint to it. And then it has these larger size sparkles in it. So it's kind of fun. So I just used this dauber and just put it on the edge. So I looked at my ornaments. I really liked all of the black and white going horizontal. So I would just look at it one side or the other, which way I wanted the top of my ornament to be, and just put a little bit of this on the top edge. And then I just dipped it right into I didn't pour any of this out. I just dipped it right into that and got a little bit on it. And then I, again, used the little metal tray and my little pokey tool and held it there and just melted that. Now, the one trick about this, let's see, I think this one really kind of shows it. If you look at this embossing where it embossed, because you already had embossed the whole thing, when you heat that up, that melts again also. And so when you're heating up that edge, you want to always do it from this end, not from this way. You want to do it from this way. And what happened is when it melted it, you can see how it kind of ran and started kind of like how watercolor does, how it just kind of bleeds into the other clear embossing powder. And it just gave it that really pretty effect. Plus then you have the little bit of sparkle. So I thought that was a lot of fun, and it just gave it that kind of snow-capped look. This one you can really see that where it kind of ran down. So it makes them all a little bit different. And some of them, maybe you don't like what's on the top of that particular one, so you do more. And maybe one you don't want to cover up that black and white, so you do less. So you just kind of make them all a little individual, little different thing. So they don't look like much when you just see them here like this, but let me grab a card. Now you want, once you're finished embossing, before you start putting your card together, it's a good idea to clean your area. Go wash your hands, because you don't want to mess up your card as you're doing this part. So I'm gonna just quickly do that. And I just want to get this any embossing powder off of my surface. Make sure my hands are clean. A clean sticker sheet, just so that I know I'm not going to mess up. And I want another one here. This will be my glue one. This will be my clean spot. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to even wear gloves so that you don't mess anything up. But I took my little circles, and because I was doing a bunch of them, I kind of laid them out in groupings of 5 so that I would make sure I got, a variety and didn't have too many of the same colors. And even I tried to look like here I have 2 of the same kind of stripy thing. That's because these are my last ones. Let's see what I have here in my alternate pile. I might swap out one of these for this one, because these 2 have a similar size black and white detail. So I think I'll use this one instead. Of course, this one and this one have the same pattern too. So what do? I'll just maybe not put them together, because they're different enough. Even though they have a similar part, I've kind of covered it up with the white on this one. So I'm going to kind of just lay these out to see something that might look visually balanced to me. So I might want to swap those are the same. Something like that, just to vary them up. And then I don't want them to all be in a row either. So I want them to kind of stagger in some way, okay? And then what I want to do is, before I glue these down, I want to make my little dangly holder thing. So for this, I'm using a Micron 05 size nib pen. This is archival. If you don't have this, you might have something like a Unipin fine liner kind of pen. This is waterproof also. So you might, one of these type of pens work great. So I just liked the size of this one. I didn't have an 05 in the other pen. So I'm going to take this, and I want to hold it really loose, because I want it to almost look like a child did it. I just want it to look really whimsical and fun. So I'm kind of just going to hold this where I think I want it, and just find the top center, and then just kind of go off my page just like that. And then this one here has to come between. So again, I'm just going to go straight off my page. This one I'm going to drop a little lower than that one. And then here. And then this one maybe a little higher. Okay, so I just have my little lines, squiggly lines, and then I can move these out of my way. And then same thing, I want to hold it really loose, and I'm just going to do like a little bow in kind of a figure 8. Kind of looks like leaves on a flower, or little flower petals. And again, I just want them to kind of look messy. And so I'm just barely holding my pen. And just made those little shapes. And now I can glue these on. Super simple. And so I'm going to take them over to my glue paper. I don't want to get anything on this. And I'm going to use this because it's dry. And I'm just going to run it. It's covered with those little adhesive dots. So this you can also get in like permanent or repositionable. So this is the permanent one, so it's super sticky. So I'm just gonna plop that hopefully kind of level on my little holder. Making sure I have the top at the top. And there's our card. And it's so funny how just when I had those sitting there, they didn't look like much of anything. But just that silly little drawn line made such a huge difference and just makes that super fun, dimensional little card. So I love how those turned out. And we used up some of more of our stripy papers that we made. So I'm thrilled with these little cards. So now I have my batch of fun, handmade, one-of-a-kind little Christmas cards. Super easy. Just adding that little bit of embossing just gives it that little extra special touch. But so much fun. So I need to make more ornaments. I need to make more of these. I need to make more papers because you can see all the projects. I've been using up all of my stripy papers that I've made. So that is it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. I don't know what it will be yet, but I'm sure I will come up with something. So have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.